Today's thought is about taking risks. When I look back on my life and my career, the biggest jumps that I had came when I took pretty big risks. I'm not talking about taking kind of stupid, uninformed risks and just gambling or randomly trying to make something happen. I'm talking about making kind of an educated assessment and taking a calculated risk. But when you play it safe in your career, you rarely get ahead that way. It's a game of inches when you do that, if you're lucky. But if you want to jump ahead miles in your career, you have to take bigger risks. And I've done that a few times, and I think I've been lucky, obviously, to have some privilege to be able to do that. I've been lucky to have a spouse who supports me in doing that, believed in me, supported me, told me that it was okay. First one we just had a baby, and so we just started a family, and I quit a really good job at Apple to take a risk and join a startup. And yeah, Apple was great, and probably could have stayed with it and made some pretty good money from the stock. Who knew at the time? It wasn't looking like it was going to be that great. Anyway, but I joined a startup and surprisingly got a huge raise to go to the startup, got stock. We got acquired, I think, in less than a year. And it wasn't big money, but it was enough money to pay off our student loans. We had a lot of student loans from going to college. So it ended up working out and being worth it. And I took another big risk when I quit another job, and started my first kind of consulting business. And now we had 2 babies. And people were like, you're going to go self-employed when you have kids and no health insurance? And are you crazy? Are you stupid? But I think in the end, that was a great decision. And it made a huge difference in my career too. Teach me how to run a business, at that age. And then more risk later. I remember one time there was a situation where I took a calculated risk and I resigned, quit a job before I had an offer in hand, but I had a couple of potential employers competing for me. So I felt like, okay, it's not a sure thing, but I hope I get an offer out of this, but I'm going to take a calculated risk and quit, and then hopefully get that offer in the next few days. And it worked out. And then going way in over my head, as an exec, and kind of raising my hand to take on a role that was way over my head. But adopting a bit of what Richard Branson says, which is to say yes and figure out how you're going to do it later. And that's not always been my personality. I've been a pretty cautious person most of my life, my younger life. And yeah, it's been okay. But then I think I realized it's like, if I keep living like this and operating like this, I'm not going to get very far. And the people who do tend to have the greatest jumps in their career and the greatest success are the ones who are willing to take some pretty big risks. And it is risky. I mean, you could get fired. You could lose everything. May lose your home. There's lots of stuff that could go wrong. So you have to balance it a bit. You don't want to be reckless, but you also don't want to play it too safe. And I'm doing it again. I reinventing my career entirely after the age of 50, leaving my primary career and my first act career and kind of abandoning that. And again, people said, are you crazy? Are you stupid? But it felt like the time to do it. And it's been fantastic. It's been good for me. Best thing ever for my health and wellness and for my well-being and reconnecting with my family. Big risk, still is a big risk. Running your own business is a huge risk. It doesn't always work out. My previous startup failed. We tried really hard. It failed. Lost everything. So something to think about. If you've been playing it really safe and you're frustrated, you feel like you're not getting ahead, that you're not making the big jumps. And I've been talking with some folks like that. And they're like, why am I not getting the best jobs? Why am I not getting promoted? Why am I not being viewed as somebody on the path to being an executive, if that's what you want? And they're playing it really, really safe. They're not raising their hand and taking on the most risky projects and the biggest projects and saying, yes, I will do that and figure out how to make it happen. And that's kind of what you need to do. So it's something for you to think about. If you're frustrated, you feel like you're not getting ahead as much as you should be, are you taking big enough risks? And make sure they're calculated and informed. Educate yourself and make the right decision. But sometimes, especially when you're younger, you have to err on the side of being a little more ambitious and being willing to take bigger risks to get ahead.